Dr. Weiss is in the hospital. Dr. Weiss is the Rebbe's doctor. We all know Dr. Weiss is the Rebbe's doctor. And apparently Dr. Weiss is a tzaddik. And he didn't become a tzaddik because he became the Rebbe's doctor. He became the Rebbe's doctor because he's a tzaddik. The Bemis. He's a great doctor. I don't know how much of a businessman he is, but he's a holy Jew. His dedication to the Rebbe, he gave his whole life. He gave away his whole life to the Rebbe. He gave away his practice. He gave away his wife and his kids to the Rebbe. The Memes. And he needs a refuah shleima. And his name is Yitzchak Zev HaLevi Ben Zelda. So it's a Chassidim Farbrengen, and the Baal Shem Tov said, the Alter Rebbe repeated the name of the Baal Shem Tov, Avas Chassidim Farbrengen kenufton, kel Sodom Shesol, Mechol, Sodom Shesol nishtufton. Why? Because Avas Yisrael is very powerful. And I think we could agree that there's nobody in this room who has a bad feeling about Dr. Weiss. You know, maybe Shmedel or Bedel or Chaim or Moshe, I don't like him so much. But I think all of us together share our Kodesh HaTev for the Mesiras Nefesh that he had for the Rebbe and for the Rebbetzin. And when we give him a bracha for Shleima, we do it together, mit den ganzen Herzen. And Koyachal, the Eivishter, cannot help but give him a refuah shleima, because when the father sees if the children get along, he gives them what they want, even if they're not behaving. As they state in Chazal. L'chaim l'vracha, tell me one more time. Yitzchak Zev HaLevi Ben Zelda. So what first Leben Marcham v'shonim sein. Haben nach von sich, von der Balabaster, von den Kindern, von den Kindskinder. Und sicher sein, zu des Gas Melech HaMashiach, sein sich mit den Reben. L'chaim l'vracha, l'chaim l'vracha, l'chaim l'vracha, l'chaim l'vracha, l'chaim. So in Das Tachten, right? In Das Tachten, what's the story? In Das Tachten, the story is that the issue that happened with the Rebbe and the Sfarim happened in every doyer of Chabad. Alter Rebbe was a Rebbe. Alter Rebbe was nostalgic. Yeah? What happened to his estate? It wasn't much. Alter Rebbe burnt his house down. They couldn't fight over the house. The house was destroyed. But there were Sfarim. I don't know how many, but there were Sfarim. And they were children. There were 3 boys and 3 girls. Yeah. One had passed away Bechaya, but there was a mishpacha. The Mittler Rebbe passed away. Mittler Rebbe had 9 children. Tzemach Tzedek passed away. Not only did he have a bunch of children, a bunch of his sons became Admurim in different places. And in each generation, there became an issue with what do you do with the estate of the Rebbe. Even by the Rebbe Marash, there were 2 brothers and there was a dintera. This is secret, not so publicized, but there's a dintera. The Rebbe Rashab had only 1 son. There was nobody to fight with, Baruch Hashem. So there was a Ben Yochid, there was no Inyan for Yerusha, no problem with Yerusha. So the Tzadchek and Eged comes along, and they say, what's the difference? In the whole, and they brought evidence, they brought rayas, that when the Marash passed away, there was a dintera, there was a division of the estate. When Tzemach Tzedek passed away, there was a dintera and division of the estate. We know the stories, we know the name of the Rabbanim who sat on those cases. And they're coming along and they're saying, why all of a sudden it's different? So the state Tuvas B'Davar, there's 2 answers to the question. The first answer to the question, you can debate with me. But the second answer to the question, you cannot debate with me. But the problem is, the first answer is really more important than the second answer. The first answer to the question is that when in earlier generations, where the Tzemach Tzedek was nostalgic, and the children divided the estate, the Rebbe Marash was not happy. The Rebbe felt it's his. The Rebbe Marash felt that as the Mamala Malkum of his father is sitting in the Babish, the whole older Nechassim of the Rebbe should stay by him. And the same is true by the Rebbe Rashab. His brother contended it. Again, it's not the parsha which is very meforsim, but apparently there was a dintera, and the Rebbe Rashab felt there shouldn't be a dintera. Not he should win the dintera, there shouldn't be one. If a Rebbe passes away and he leaves several children, and one of his children is Bnei Mamal Makeme, automatically whatever the father owned, the son owns, because it doesn't belong to the son, it belongs to the Malucha, it belongs to the kingdom, it belongs to the kingship, it belongs to the Malchus. The Rabbeim went along with it. They did have Dinei Torah, there was some kind of a division of an estate, but from what I understand, even then the Rabbeim were not happy about it, they didn't want it. That's the first thing. But then the second thing. The Frierdiker Rebbe went out of his way to make it impossible to think otherwise. He incorporated Agudas Tzidich Chabad as a league as soon as he landed in America. He purchased the building of 770 under the ownership of Agudat Chassidim Chabad. I have a tape of Shmuel Isaac speaking by you. He's gone already. What happened to you?
There's another one right there.
No, wordy. He's Yeshua ran off.
His brother.
Yeshua did a class with your Zayde, Oliver Shalom, Shmuel Isaac, where he talked about his connection to the Rebbe. I have it someplace. And he says that when they bought 770, the Frierdiker Rebbe called him in and said, I want you to be 770's business manager. Shmuel Isaac Popak. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said to him, every month you will come to me and I will give you a check for rent. The Frierdiker Rebbe is living in 770 and he's paying rent. For heaven's sakes. The Frierdiker Rebbe has to pay rent. I'm asking you, the Frierdiker Rebbe has to pay rent on 770? It's his. The Rebbe wanted to be very clear that even though he's the Rebbe, the Nasi Ador, the building doesn't belong to him, it belongs to Aguch. And the same is true with the library. That when he brought the library from Europe, he got the American government to help him get the library out of Europe based on the argument that it's not a private library, it's a public with Agudat Chassidim Chabad. And he made it the legal property of Agudat Chassidim Chabad. The Frierdiker Rebbe went out of his way to make it clear that this is not private, it's public. So what did they taine? Shtick! He's trying to avoid paying taxes. He wants the government's help. So the Rebbe said, Mamish, that's what you think it's Frierdiker Rebbe? Aganef and Aligner. That's what you think it's Frierdiker Rebbe? That's what you think of your father and your grandfather and your Rebbe, that he's a Dreyer? Mamish. This in Das Tachten is the story. The Rebbe said the Frierdiker Rebbe made it very clear that this is not the private property. The Rebbetzin was asked. It doesn't belong to me, it doesn't belong to me, not for a minute. She said, when my father passed away, my mother passed away. My sister gave me a few shmatis. And if you want, you can have him back. If you want, you can have a paar shmatis. There's no inheritance. It doesn't belong to them. It belonged to us. It belonged to Chassidim, like the Rebbetzin said. They were arguing that it's private, right? And B'meil, they have a right to divide it up. And the Raya was precedent. That's how it was in earlier generations. But you should understand that although factually the second point is more practically important, theoretically, ideologically, the first point, the Rebbeim always felt this way. I spoke to the kids today in school. I asked them a simple shaila. A king passes away. A king dies. I asked the kids a simple question. A king passes away, dies, and leaves over 4 children. And one of his kids succeeds him. What happens to the wealth? What happens to the estate? In many civilizations, they literally kill each other. They kill each other. If you're more civilized, so there's but there's an understanding that if somebody sits on the chair of his father, the bulk of the wealth that belongs to the House of Windsor in England, yeah? Charles becomes the king. He doesn't get 25% of what Elizabeth owned. There were 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Yeah, Charles became the king when Elizabeth died. He's the king. So of course his brothers and sisters are not starving. Don't worry about it. They machen gut auf Shabbos und auf Montag und auf Dienstag und auf Freitag noch the Chage Echet. Yeah, they're okay. They're all right. But there's an understanding that if you sit on the throne of your father, the bulk of the estate is yours. Why? Because it's not private. The wealth of a king belongs to the kingdom. In Torah and in Yiddishkeit, this goes to such an extent that the king does not own the bed he sleeps on. The king does not own the wagon he drives. When a king becomes a king, 2 things happen. He becomes all-powerful, and he owns nothing. He's the king. Kings in Halacha have more power than Nevi'im. Kings in Halacha have more power than the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. But he doesn't own the shirt on his back. He is the property of the people. And this is how it is al pi Torah. It's also true in common sense. This is the story, this is the impasse of the Sfarim, where some people are saying in past generations there was a division of an estate. We want to continue that tradition. And the Rebbe is saying, first of all, it should never have happened. Second of all, the Frierdiker Rebbe went out of his way to make sure that it shouldn't happen. He wanted to be absolutely clear, this doesn't belong to me, it doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to the Rebbe. It belongs to Chassidim, it belongs to Anash, it belongs to Agudat Chassidim Chabad. Agudat Chassidim Chabad is not a bunch of old people who sit in an office and have meetings, or don't have meetings. Agudat Chassidim Chabad is every Lubavitcher Chassid in the world. We are Agudat Chassidim Chabad. If you're Lubavitcher Chassid, you own 770. You own the library. It's your property. You own it with a bunch of other people. But the Rebbe said, why are you being quiet? This is your estate that's being pillaged, not mine. So the Rebbe said, by the Farbrengen. This is your wealth that's being taken away. Why are you letting it happen? Speak up. It belongs to you. To you means to every Lubavitcher Chassid. This was the impasse, you understand? So I said to the girls, I said to the kids, I said, a king dies, a successor takes his place. So it depends on the civilization, it depends on the culture, it depends on the politics. In some cases, there's a greater division of the state. In some cases, there's a lesser division of the estate. In some cases, there's no division of the estate. But there's an understanding that this is not private property. It belongs to the nation. In America, we don't have a king, we have a president. The president comes into the office with wealth, and it remains personal wealth. He gets paid, not too much money, but he gets paid. When he lives in the White House, he doesn't sleep in his own bed. He doesn't eat his own food. His personal life is government. It's true in every executive. It's true of a president. It's true of a governor. It's true of a mayor. If you are the executor of a city, right, there's a lot of elected officials. But most elected officials, if you get elected to be a member of the city council, you don't move into the city council house. You live in your own house. If you're a member of the Congress, of the people who make laws, you work for the government. The mayor, the executor of the city moves into Gracie Mansion. He lives in the house that belongs to the city. And if you're the governor of the state, you move into the state capital, you live in the house that belongs to the people. And the same is true of a president. But there's a clear separation of private and public, because when he leaves the office, he leaves it behind. Because the property in which he lives belongs to the people. But by a king, it's much trickier, because he can do whatever he wants with it. It is private. But it's private with the understanding that it's because he's the melech. So when a king passes and he leaves a successor, the wealth which is his goes over to that child who succeeds him, because there's an understanding that belongs to the kingship. There's one exception to that rule. There's one exception to that rule. If you have a kingdom, which is one for generations, the House of Windsor is a very good example, because they're rich people. The British monarchs are very rich. They have a lot of wealth. Privately, they're the richest family in England. But there's an understanding that their wealth is complicated, because they're monarchs, they're kings, they're queens, they have positions of responsibility for the whole civilization. Yeah. What's the one way that construct falls apart? There's only one way that construct collapses. A king passes away, succeeded by another king. King passes away, succeeded by another king. The property remains more or less, or to some extent, the property of the people. It belongs to the family, but there's an understanding this is not a king, this is a kingdom, and all the people of the kingdom have a weird kind of ownership over the wealth that belongs to the royal family. There's only one way that collapses. If there's no people, if the nation dissipates, if the kingdom falls to pieces. It's like the shuls in Brooklyn. As long as there's 10 people, the shul doesn't belong to anybody. But there's two guys left, the Gabi and the Shamis. And the Shamis is 1.5 feet in the grave and half a foot in the B'dat Appeal. And the Gabi's got 1 foot and 1 foot in and out. What happens now? There's no people. There's no people. So the Rebbe says, put people in, don't sell the shul. But if there's no people, it becomes private by default. If there's nobody to claim ownership, it falls into the hands of persons written on the legal deed. If the king has a kingdom and he has a following, even though it's private, there's an understanding it's not his, it's the people's. Provided that there are people. The moment there's no more people, so by default, by a lack of alternative, it becomes the property of the two. They put out the five as a geblim leben, and they do whatever they wish with it. They destroy it, they pillage it, they sell it. Why? Because there's nobody to claim ownership. This is what happened. There is a claim that Lubavitch is over. And if Lubavitch is over, that's what happens to a synagogue when there's only 2 people left in the membership. Nobody comes to shul anymore. They move to a different neighborhood. They're keeping the shul open because you're not supposed to close the shul. And one guy dies and another guy dies. And there's 2 guys left. So we better sell it before we die. The government's going to take the house. So the taina that says Lubavitch is over, Chassidus is over, and what's left falls to the family by default. Because this funny relationship between public and public, it belongs to them, but it doesn't belong to them. If there's nobody left to claim it, it falls back to the family. And the Rebbe says, what are you talking about? This nation, this community is stronger than it ever was. This is a debate. This is an argument. And in Das Tachten, the argument, the way they look at it is, the Rebbe is not the Hamshach, the Frierdiker Rebbe. He's so different than the Frierdiker Rebbe. He's so modern, he's so up to date. He's not Russian and old fashioned. He's a whole nother. To them, the Rebbe is a new Chassidus. And to the Rebbe, there's no greater insult, there's no greater slap in the face to the Rebbe than to say, you are not sitting on the Frierdiker Rebbe's chair. You cannot hurt the Rebbe more deeply by doing anything than saying that you're a Rebbe and you're a tzaddik and you're gadol and you're a kodesh and you're god and you're baruch hakodesh and balmeifes and a great askin. But it's new. To the Rebbe, it's only one thing. The Rebbe, the Shver, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the benkel as he called it, the seat. I am sitting on my father-in-law's chair. There's actually tapes. There's tapes, you can hear it, where the Rebbe took a lot of mashke, and they were very worried about the Rebbe. The Rebbe did whatever he wanted. And somebody comes over to the Rebbe and he shushkas something to the Rebbe about the Rebbe taking care of himself. And you hear the Rebbe say to the guy, clearly, Willst du Rebbe dem Shver? Willst du Rebbe dem Shver? You want the job. Willst du Rebbe dem Shver? You want to sit where I'm sitting. So sit down and be quiet. The Rebbe didn't say the second part, but doesn't bother. Willst du Rebbe dem Shver? You want the job that I have? You want to do what I'm doing? You don't want it. Don't tell me how to do it. Willst du benehmen dem Shver? You want it? Willst du benehmen dem Shver? This is one angle, the Kitrug, that they're saying we're not no problem with Lubavitch, but it's not the Frierdiker Rebbe to do Lubavitch, and the Lubavitch to the Frierdiker Rebbe is, what do they say it? It's crashed and burnt. There's nobody who claims it, so it falls by default into the family, and the Rebbe is screaming, "What are you talking about? Lubavitch, the Frierdiker Rebbe is never more Rebbe than he is today." And tomorrow, he's going to be even more Rebbe than now. And in 2 days from now, he's going to be even more Rebbe than tomorrow. Very simple. Why? Because the criteria of the continuation of Hu B'Chaim is Zare B'Chaim. The continuation of the Rebbe's Nesius, of the Rebbe's kingdom, is Anash, is Chassidim. So I want to split it here. I want to say 2 points. One point is a claim that the Rebbe is set from the Frierdiker Rebbe. But there's a deeper claim. It is a deeper claim. And the deeper claim is that there's no more Lubavitch Chassidim. Why not? Lubavitch Chassidim daven bariches. Lubavitch Chassidim don't talk to Kirsat Torah. Lubavitch Chassidim move very slowly and they think very deeply and they're very frum and they're very earnest. You heard that shul called Beis Shmuel? You ever go into that place? You ever go into that place? How much stucca comes out of Beis Shmuel? This they don't know. And there's a claim, Asanid Ezel Bezach. And the Rebbe is telling the whole world, don't tell me what Lubavitch is. This is the same Lubavitch and it's the same Rebbe. I'm not saying he's talking shul and Beis Shmuel, just for the record. It's the same Rebbe, it's the same Chassidus. And Lubavitch is more alive every day than it was the day before. The here that I want to split Rabbi say is, there is the half of the story which is separating the Rebbe from the Frierdiker Rebbe. And there's a half a story that's separating the Rebbe from us. And I think it's true that the second story is even more earnest than the first. To say that the Rebbe is not like the Frierdiker Rebbe is to the Rebbe everything. He's going to quit. He's resigning. He doesn't want the job. You know, when the Rebbe was nostalgic, the Rebbe called in a Rav and asked the Rav if he's still the Frierdiker Rebbe's son-in-law. In Mem Ches, he's a Rebbe for 38 years. He wants enough halachically. He's still connected to the Frierdiker Rebbe. So Pekarski, the Rosh Hashiva, first he said you're connected. Then he had to prove it. And with the Rebbe, you can't play games. I can't learn it. The Rebbe can't learn it. So he had to figure out, al pi halacha, how even though the Rebbe had no children, if the Rebbe had children, so that connects. The Shakakin did. So how is he still a native? How is he still a son-in-law? And it was very important to the Rebbe. I don't know if you're familiar with these stories. There's an interesting story that when the Rebbe was sitting Shiva, for the Rebbe, and he told many people that a binyan adayad means that marriage is forever. A person passes away, they're still married. The Gerer Rosh Yeshiva came as a representative of the Gerer Rebbe, And it's very hard to speak in front of the Rebbe. The Rebbe is very intimidating, even if you're not a Lubavitcher. So he rehearsed a speech at Angechaz, what he's going to say. But the halacha is, when you come to Nichem Avelim, B'chlau, and by the Rebbe for sure, you're not allowed to start. The Oval has to speak and then you respond. So he walks in and he sits down, and the Rebbe tells him that the chasane means binyan adayad, which means that the marriage lasts forever. After the Rebbe said it at him, he makes his official speech. When he prepared, what was his speech? He didn't even hear what the Rebbe told him. That when the Getter Rebbe of Amartcha lost his wife, he was very broken. Because Eishes Neurim, Afilam Mizbech, he was explaining to the Rebbe how terrible it is. You lose your first wife. How the Getter Rebbe lamented the loss of his wife. The Rebbe interrupts him and says to him, before he said his speech, the Rebbe had to Mageschlag, and the guy said, Drasha, it's a marriage is forever. Bin Adayad. I am married to the Rebbe. I'm married to the Rebbe. It means I'm still the son of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe asked the Rav, am I an Edom? Why? Because that's his link to this Shalshalis. Everybody knows the stories. There's a lot of stories which is not for today, it's for a different occasion. But the Tzemach Tzedek predicted that the Rebbe would be Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe predicted that the Rebbe would be Rebbe. There's a dream, a Ma'aseh B'tachom in the Tzivir HaSichos, and look at the bottom, where the Alter Rebbe came into a Chassid in a dream and told him, Menachem beheva, Menachem ba'aseh. The Chaim the Baravdin did not go to the Tzemach Tzedek, because he was his Chaver. They were Chaver, they learned together. And the Alter Rebbe told him, go to Lubavitch, you have a Rebbe. And then he said, Menachem beheva, Menachem ba'aseh. Menachem in the present, Menachem in the future. When the Rebbe Rayatz passed away, this Sicha in Ksaviat Kedesh was Beharav Meir Ashkenazi. He was in New York at the time. And he came to the Rebbe with the Sicha, and he showed the Rebbe the Sicha. The Alter Rebbe, in a dream, predicted Menachem beheva, Menachem now, and Menachem ba'aseh, Menachem in the future. It's the Rebbe. And when you came to the Rebbe and you told him these stories, what did he say? The Frierdiker Rebbe didn't tell me. As far as he was concerned, if it's not from the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's none of his business. It comes from the Tzemach Tzedek, it comes from the Alter Rebbe, it comes from the Eibishter himself. It's the Rebbe the Shver. So this idea that you're going to somehow say that there's a separation to the Rebbe was devastating. But even deeper than that is us. Because Ein Melech B'Yam. It's very simple. Ein Melech B'Yam. Ein Melech B'Lo Am. There's no king without a nation. I think about this a lot. I really do. I think about this a lot. We have no relationship to the Rebbe whatsoever. There's no proximity, there's no closeness, there's no relativism, there's no erech between the Rebbe and us. You know, who was it? Shmuel Ber Barisova used to say that our hasaga lagabe Rabbi Hillel is Levi the Katz. Rabbi Hillel's hasaga the Tzemach Tzedek is Levi the Katz. But lagabe the Tzemach Tzedek is uns and Rabbi Hillel the Zelba Katz. You have to translate into English. He says, Shmuel Ber Barisova was one of the greatest maskilim. He was a moidenik cup. He said, our understanding of Chassidus next to Rabbi Hillel Paj is like the understanding of a cat. How intelligent is a cat? They're brilliant about catching mice, but that's about it, yeah? He says, Rabbi Hillel's understanding Lagabe the Tzemach Tzedek is also like a cat. But when you put Rabbi Hillel and us and Tzemach Tzedek together, we're the same cat. We have no shaykhs to the Rebbe, none. But the very definition of Rebbe is called Hiskashrus. There's a bond between the Rebbe, the Nasi Adar, and Chassidim. There's a bond between Chassidim and the Nasi Adar, and you know where that bond plays out? In one place. In one place and one place only. When we do the things he tells us to do. We're in the same world. There's no closeness at all. But the Rebbe needs us. He needs Chassidim. It's a weird thing to say, but we're makusha to the Rebbe not because of the great things we do, but the things that we do because he told us. And it creates a bond which is so important that not only is it important to us, it's important to him. And just like Chassidim need a Rebbe, Rebbe needs Chassidim. He becomes a Rebbe because he's Chassidim. Rebbe Marash once said to Rebbe Paltiel, one of the greatest Chassidim, as long as there's Chassidim, there's a Rebbe. Eibs doch Chassidim, gut zu Buddhim. Eibs doch Chassidim ist da a Rebbe, aber Chassidim was tun. Und wenn der Chassidim tun nicht, machen sie dem Rebbe ois Rebbe. This is a quote from the Buddha. I don't know why this is mamish the story of CHAMISHA BITEVES. As long as the Chassidim is a Rebbe, the Chassidim have to work. If the Chassidim stop work, they de-Rebbe the Rebbe. An already sitting Rebbe becomes less of a Rebbe if there's no Chassidim. And this is really the story of CHAMISHA BITEVES. There's an attack, there's a criticism that says Lubavitch is over. Why Lubavitch is over? Number one, because the Rebbe feeds Rebbe Sefer Zachan. And number two, who does Rebbe have? A bunch of farmers? With these farmers, the Rebbe is turning over the world. There's a lot of good Lashon Hara Maises. I mean, gewaltige Lashon Hara Maises. It's not an official Lashon Hara session, but there are stories that we know. That the Tmimim from Lubavitch, a lot of them lived in America. And I don't know how to say this gently, and I'm not even sure I can say it correctly, but the Rebbe didn't see them as his. They were his father's. The Rebbe see them as Rebbe Shabbos, whatever it was. He had a relationship with them. They all came to him for lekach. They pushed to get Kesha Bracha first. But unless they got involved in the Rebbe's work, they were carryovers. And then they were the Amerikaner Boitchkes, us. And there are occasions where people said to the Rebbe, why are you treating him different than me? How come the young Bacher gets all the attention, and I'm an old Chassid, I'm a bigger Talmid Chacham, and a bigger Rosh Hashiva, and a bigger Chassid, a bigger Ovid, a bigger Baskel, and for me, you're not going to do what you can do for him. And the answer is very plain, because he's mine. He is mine. And you're very important. But you're not mine. This is real. The Rebbe's connection to us is not because we're worthy, but because we're fortunate to be in the position where we do little things that Kvayochel create the bond between Chassid and Rebbe and Chassid. And the story of CHAMISHA BITEVES is saying the Chassidim teigen nicht. And the Rebbe says, yeah, the Chassidim teigen nicht. Gib mal guck, was tut der Welt. You want to hear something? This is so mind-boggling that you don't even know which way to boggle the mind. The Alter Rebbe went to jail. Why? We know the story. Because he spread Chassidus, and the Chassidus was not being utilized enough. Right? So what's the answer to go to jail? You utilize it more. The Mittler Rebbe went to jail. Why? Because the Mittler Rebbe revealed Chassidus Mamash Shalei Be'erach, even more than Alter Rebbe, and they didn't utilize it enough. So when the Parshas HaSfarim was happening, the Rebbe spoke about it 3 times. In the summer of Memheit, summer of 85, Chanukah time Memvav, when the case was actually going on, and then when we won. CHAMISHA BITEVES Mem Zayin. Each time was a different theme and a different tone. So when the Rebbe spoke Chanukah Memvav about the Sfarim, he spoke about the Kitruk. He spoke about the Alter Rebbe. How the Alter Rebbe went to jail, and when he was released from jail, the Kitruk went away. The Rebbe asked the question, if there's a Kitruk against Chassidus, and the Kitruk is lifted, how could there be another Kitruk? It already happened. And the teretz is, when you reveal more, you have a new Kitruk. Very simple. When you do more, you have a new criticism, a new protest, a new Kitruk. When it came Mem Zayin, Tuesday, CHAMISHA BITEVES Tafshim Mem Zayin, where the Kriyas HaTeira was V'techi Ruach Yankav Aviyam, and Rashi says, Shas Allah Ruach HaKodesh, you could not have a more perfect chitas for CHAMISHA BITEVES than Tuesday of Vayigash. You couldn't, this is fact, go through the whole Chumash. There's 350 aliyahs. You find another aliyah that speaks to CHAMISHA BITEVES like Tuesday of Vayigash. And there's different opinions about how you divide aliyahs. It's only according to us that Vayidchi Ruach HaKaviyim is Yankov Avinu lost his Ruach HaKodesh because he thought Yosef HaTzadik is lost. And when a Tzadik doesn't have Simcha, there's no Ruach HaKodesh. And they told him, Oid Yosef Chai. And Vayidchi Ruach Rashi Shor Salah of Ruach HaKodesh. The Rebbe spoke about this in the Sikha. He didn't spell it out, but you understand? You understand? Could you have it better? Oid Yosef Chai. The whole Kitrug is about Oid Yosef Chai. And on the day that you read in the Chumash Oid Yosef Chai, and Yankov Avinu says, Jar Salah Ruach HaKodesh, this was the day of Didan Notzach. The Rebbe spoke to Sikh after Mincha. I was in California at the time. So we heard the hookup. Yenison Hackner gave us play-by-play. In Mitten Chazaras HaShatz, the Rebbe asked for a Chumash. 770 was rocking. In Middle Chazaras HaShatz, he announces the Rebbe asked for a Chumash, because they knew that means I was going to speak. In Middle Chazaras HaShatz, the Rebbe needs Pasha to prepare. Punkt Azeh, Anyway, the Rebbe spoke. He spoke about the Chitas. And what did he say? He said there was a criticism against Lubavitch. And the criticism is, as Agudas Chassidim Chabad is nish genug aktiv. Aguch is not doing enough. Now that's political speak. That's business speak. That's social science speak. What's he saying? There's a Rebbe and there's Chassidim. If the Rebbe and the Chassidim are not connected, If the Rebbe and the Chassidim are not connected, it creates a problem with the Rebbe. Because the Rebbe's identity is the Chassidim, and the Chassidim are not doing enough from the problem with the Rebbe. The problem with the Rebbe, you come into a whole shaila of if hu b'chayim, because there's a shaila of zare b'chayim. And then the Rebbe said plainly, please do not believe me. Take out the sichos and look them up, and you'll see them for yourself. That the Rebbe said, listen to this. It's impossible to say, Moshe, I'm sorry, I'm punching you. I'm not sorry. Okay, but official, I'm sorry. The Rebbe said it's impossible to say in our generation that we didn't do enough. The Alter Rebbe's generation, the Rebbe didn't spell it out. The title was he didn't do enough. The Middle Rebbe's generation, the Rebbe said publicly, you cannot say about our generation we didn't do enough. You can't say it. Now the Rebbe's a maven, and he's also he's a critic. Yeah, he's not trying to be right. If the Rebbe said it's emes, so if you have the Rebbe's glasses, the Rebbe looks how the Alter Rebbe had a relationship with his Chassidim, and the Rebbe's relationship. We're not even flies on the wall by the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim. We're so nothing. The Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, there aren't enough words in any language to express the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim were giants. What are we? We're not even. We're murishkis. We're insects. But that's not how this is measured. You measure every dot against itself. And if you measure dot against itself, the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, you say they should have done more. And the Rebbe is saying as an edus, we did enough. So why did it happen? That was the Rebbe's question. When you don't do enough, there's a kitrug. But if you do enough, why is there a kitrug? It says the only answer I have, the Rebbe said this publicly, is the Eibishter wants us to do more. That's how the Rebbe looked at the story. If I state, so this Yom Tif, this Moyed, this Chag, this celebration, it's about the Rebbe, it's about us. CHAMISHA BITEVES is about Zare B'Chaim. It's about Lubavitch Chassidim. 30 years after Gimel Tammuz, who are so strong in their identity, people are jealous of us. We're so clear about who we are. And what's our purpose? We're not perfect, we know that. And we're even able to admit that to ourselves. We're very, very far from perfect. But every member of Anash who lives in a big community like Crown Heights or like Chicago or like Los Angeles or like Montreal or like Miami Beach or in little enclaves, a lot of Chaver are now moving out to places of Shlichus because they can't afford to buy a house. Yeah, and there's a strong identity on the Lubavitch Chassidim. Shmoy Nikra Love, Shem, we have that name. And that responsibility. And so Nishka Mitzvah Zayin Anajot. We don't have to dafka put our foot in our mouth and embarrass ourselves and embarrass the Rebbe. But we have an identity as Chassidim. That is such a ness. It's a moidendika ness. And the pilpul goes, what's the cause and what's the effect? What's the chicken and what's the egg? Is it hu b'chaim and therefore zare b'chaim? Or is it zare b'chaim or is it hu b'chaim? The Rebbe said that because it's hu b'chaim is zare b'chaim. Officially, it goes the other way. Because in Chumash Rashi, Yankov Avinu passes away, and you say Yankov Avinu lay meis because of Zari B'chaim. But the Rebbe said the truth is, so that Rebbe, and the Rebbe is alive, and the Rebbe picks his Mishagoyim, you understand? He handpicks his whack jobs, that they're going to be his kinderlach, they're going to have a connection to him, and Kvayachal, he's going to have a connection to them. They are going to do what the Rebbe Kvayachal needs to get done in this world. And that's us. That's a nash, that's shluchim. Of course, nothing to talk about. But every Lubavitch is a shliach. We know that. We understand that. We accept that responsibility. That's what this is about. The deepest madrega of CHAMISHA BITEVES is Zare B'Chaim. Because that's the foundation of Hu B'Chaim. Even though it's an Isrusa de Liela. Let's not get carried away. It's all the Rebbe. Everybody knows it. It's all the Rebbe. It's all the Rebbe. But we're the fortunate ones. In other words, if we think we're bad, in other words, a real Lashon Hara. A guy was on Shlichus. And he had a Yetzer Hara. He had a gargantuan Yetzer Hara. He had a substantial Yetzer Hara. He had a Yechid with the Rebbe with his wife. And he wanted the Rebbe to know that he thinks it's a bad idea that he should be a shliach because it's going to reflect negatively on the Rebbe. He knows himself, he knows the Yetzer Hara, he knows what could happen, in quotes. It's a better idea that Rebbe should send somebody else to his place of shlichus.
He was already there?
He was already there.
Wow.
And he wrote a note, and she wrote a note. The two of them. I heard the story from his mechutin. I heard the story from someone who heard it directly from him. I know this person is, but I heard it not from him, from his mechutin. Listen to this. The two of them walk into the Rebbe together. And I'm sure his wife knew what he was up to, and his disyayness, and his worries, his concerns. And in his note, he wrote that he thinks that the Rebbe should reconsider making him a shliach because it's not going to end well. I don't know what she wrote. Maybe she wrote, "What do I do with my crazy husband?" That's not what she wrote. The Rebbe didn't open his letter. The Rebbe took the two letters, put his down, opened up his, didn't even open his letter, and ignored him. And answered his wife's letter about the shlichus and going back to the place where they live, and the name of the place I'm not going to tell you. And you think this is over. And they're walking out, and the Rebbe looks up at him and says to him in Yiddish, was ist mit dem CHAMISHA? What about the power, the authority, the one who sent you? Which means in English, if you're a bad shliach, I'm a bad chooser. I picked you to go on shlichus. You think you're on shlichus by mistake? I chose you to go on shlichus. So if you think you're unworthy of a shliach, you're saying I don't have good judgment. And you don't want to say that, right? It's not chassidish. 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 The Rebbe, oizikli medina shamis. We are anash. We're anshe shleimenu. We're Lubavitch Chassidim. And I believe me, I'm very aware of our chesrenis, and I spent the whole year talking about it. The Gemara says it's 364 days a year that you got to do tshuva. One day there's no Yetzer Hara, the Yom Kippur, or the Shavuos, but Ujas CHAMISHA BITEVES. And today we're all tzaddikim. Tomorrow I'll tell you all the complaints. Friday when you're not working because Trump said you're not allowed to work. But the Rebbe chose us to be his Chassidim. Some of us are shluchim ourselves. Some of us have children who are shluchim. Some of us have brothers and sisters shluchim. Some parents shluchim, and we're all shluchim. Because there's no such thing as being a Lubavitcher and not being involved in this work of sacrifice. It's very cute. My son walked in my room last night, 2 o'clock in the morning. And he came from a Farbrengen. He was very, very excited. So he says to me, Zari B'chaim, Hu B'chaim. So I said to him, this is shlichus. And then I told him, shlichus is mesiras nefesh. Shlichus is mesiras nefesh. Not just if you live in, I don't know what, in Cambodia. It's mesiras nefesh, you live in Manhattan. And if you don't think it, or Grand Heights, if you don't think it is, try it. It's really the idea that you have to serve the whole world and take everybody's garbage and you can't, there's no place to put it in the toilet except once a year by the kinnis. It's not. It's a nish geschmack. Shlichus is hard. It's unbelievably worthwhile. It's a very meaningful life, but it's not easy. So I said to my son, Shlichus is mesiras nefesh. The shluchim of today who do what the Rebbe wants are no less than the Alter Rebbe Chassidim who did what the Alter Rebbe wanted. He wanted something different. They were different people. They achieved in personal avodah. We don't even have a dream of who's gehalten in Teiru and Avedu and Bir Amidus. They were tzaddikim, beinim. What are we? Nice guys. But in our generation, this is the reality. And the Alter Chassidim couldn't stand our generation, and the Rebbe loved our generation. Why? Not because he liked it, because this is what God gave him. And this is what God gave him, this is what he's going to work with, and he's going to do it b'simcha rabba, and he's going to make it work, and he used us. He used our parents, he used our grandparents, he used us. This relationship, this chus, this special idea that we belong to, we're anshe shleimenu, we're Lubavitcher Chassidim, a relationship with the Rebbe. And we are the Zari B'chayim, because of whom is, Hu B'chayim. Lubavitch is, you can't figure Lubavitch out. The whole frum world, everybody can figure Lubavitch out. But Lubavitch is cool. Lubavitch is okay, is all right. It's unbelievable. It's so miraculous. The whole thing is so miraculous. It's so miraculous. The Yom Tif that celebrates this miracle is today. Medafas verstehen, medafas derheren. Why is it important? Because you have to understand that this is not about books. This is about the Rebbe. It's about Chassid. It's about the Nitzchias, the eternity of a Rebbe's life. And this. It's a big Yom Tov. It's a big Yom Tov. So when I hasten, Asher Batumer, Asher Sasonkin, yeah, Asher Sasonkin was a very big Chassid, and he was I can't find Lenin. I mean, he spent 10 years in the gulags. He was a special yid. He was the guy who used to make Lahadlik, Ner, Chanukah. I mean, a lot of the guys in this room remember him. You're not much younger than I am, so you remember this. So they used to have the big Farbrengens, like 5-6 times a year. And Asher Batum was one of the speakers. He didn't speak for very long. He would bark out his speech and sit down. He was a very Chassidish yid. So one of his speeches was, he had the same speeches over and over again, you know. And by the way, for the record, the only guy who came prepared to those Farbrengens, the only guy who came prepared was J.J. Hecht. Yankel Hecht never got up in 770 and spoke impromptu. All the other speakers, every drush was exactly the same because they didn't prepare. They got misspoke. The whole Lubavitch is coming to listen. They didn't have the 10 minutes. Yankel Hecht used to prepare, and you have to give him credit. And I'm not saying this to credit Yankel Hecht. If you are asked to speak, prepare. Respect your audience, and you respect your audience by not showing up and saying, "Okay, what am I going to talk about?" You respect your audience by saying, "If they were business people, if they were not frum, if they were not Lubavitch, I would prepare. I should prepare now also. And if you prepare, they'll respect you. And if you don't prepare, don't complain. With no respect in Lubavitch, you don't respect Lubavitch." Anyway, the rant is over. Asher Batuma would give speeches, and he didn't have to prepare. He's in a different category. So one of the stories that he would tell was the following story. That in Tovkuf Samach, the Alter Rebbe was released from prison, Tovkuf Nentes, 1798. He was released from prison 2 years later, Tovkuf Samach Aleph, 1800, okay? There was 1 year in between, Tovkuf Samach, 1799. The Alter Rebbe said Chassidim they shouldn't come to Lozhne. The Alter Rebbe knew that he wasn't over. He didn't make a Suda Seidah till Tovkuf Samach Beis, till 1801. Till 3 years after the first arrest, and the Alter Rebbe knew there's going to be more. And he waited to make the official Suda till he moved to Liadi, till Tovkuf Samach Beis. Tovkuf Samach, the Alter Rebbe said, don't come, there's no celebration. Lepel, there was a Suda Seidah. Still at hate, there was a Suda Seidah. And the Alter Rebbe said, a Maimer, Baruch Shasalines. There's an Ayem about this also, about Sud, Echem Kedesh, about Moichen, and the whole thing. So the Rebbe Asher, the Telta Mais, and I just now saw it from one of the Rebbeim, I think. I saw it from a more reliable source, that Chassidim came to Lozhne, to Malten Rebbe, to celebrate Yitzchak Kislev, and Alter Rebbe walked around amongst the Chassidim with a bottle of mashke, pouring l'chaim to the Chassidim, and he said, Yidden esst und trinkt a größe Nesse getroffen. Jews eat and drink, a great miracle happened. CHAMISHA BITEVES is a great miracle, but it's not a miracle that happened in Tov Shin Mem Zayin, it's a miracle that's happening in Tov Shin Pei Vav. Listen. I don't know how long people are sticking around, but we're singing the Alter Rebbe's Niggin now. So if you're religious, you put on your gattel and your hat and your sutuk. L'chaim. It's not none of the Chassidim. Oh, you'll invite me, yeah?
Ya
mum terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma ma hu yum terera la la ya ma 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 ya ma 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 terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma ma hu yum terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma ma terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma ma ho yum terera ya 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 yo na 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 terera ya 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 terera na 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 num terera ya 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 ay 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 yo terera na 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 num terera ya 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 yo terera ra 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 ma ya 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 yo terera na 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 num terera ya 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 yo terera ra 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 ma ya 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 yo terera na 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 num terera ya mam ay ay ya 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 ram oh ya ram oh ya ya nam ay ya na ya 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 ay nam ay oh ay 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 ram ay ram ay yam ay ya 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 na terera na ra 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 ya na 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 ay na ra 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 ya na ya na ya 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 ra ya Tadadai na da 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 ya na 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 ay na da 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 ya na ya na ya 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 tadadai na ya ya Yamam, 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 Ayama ya 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 yedadam oh yedadam oh yedadada yamam ayama ya 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 yamam Ayama ya 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 yedadam oh yedadam hadada yamam ayama yama mama nada yeshurit sikhlamti Shayis namme bodet mi payedim daka changa tammi vodka bodet yeshurit sikhlamti Shayis namme bodet mi payedim daka changa tammi vodka bodet la 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 yedirim la 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 yedirim la 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 yedirim la 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 yedirim la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 yedirim la yedirim la ya ya yedirim la 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 ya la 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 yedirim la ya ya yedirim la Allah la 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 Allah la la yedirim la 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 Allah la la yedirim la 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 ya la 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 yedirim la 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 Allah la la yedirim la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Allah la ya la 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 ya la 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 Allah la 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 Allah la la yedirim Allah la la yedirim Allah la 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 Allah la la yedirim Allah la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la